Thank you. Thank you so much for the extremely kind, very kind introduction. Almost actually put a tear in my eye. It's, you get to see pictures like that, and unfortunately my wife and my kids are not here to be here with me. They attended one of the dinners when General Tinchuk, the Chief of Defense Staff, was here. I wish they could have seen that video because this is less about me, it's more about them. If it wasn't for them, I can't do the things that I've been able to do. But before I start, I also want to be able to say is you can't accomplish anything without a phenomenal team. You need a good boss, and you need a good team to surround you to accomplish things. And that's the only reason I've had this great success, whether it's been my parents early on, my grandparents, to my teachers, my coaches, my commanders, and even in the police force as well. And now I get to work with some phenomenal people. My boss, or some of us call him just as a boss, he's known as the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who lets us do our work. And I'm also very honored to work with a phenomenal team, because we can't accomplish anything without a team. And we have some people here today, Bardish, Nav, who are also here, and Raj is here as well. We get to work with a phenomenal team to make change. And also, just now that I brought up Nav's name, I have to always say something about Nav. So when I was appointed the Minister of National Defense, so no one knew. So we all go to the hotel. We kind of see each other for the first time, asking each other what portfolio we got. And Nav immediately asked, he asked me, and I found out what he had. And so now he goes around, when he found out the Minister of National Defense, he goes, we had a push-up contest, right? And if you could do 10 push-ups, right? He goes, I couldn't do 10 push-ups, that's why Harj got the portfolio, right? But keep in mind, he is smart, okay? He is very smart. He might be younger, but I rely on him for advice. And so he's smart. So I'm like, no. He can do 10 push-ups. He can do more than that, okay? So here's the issue. I get to have to spend money, okay? Spend all the time trying to convince people for I can buy things and spend stuff. He gets to dole it out, okay? So everybody wants to be next to him. And so you think I have a good title, right? I think you've heard it, right? Badass, right? But you guys realize what his acronym actually is? I can't even say all those things, right? What is the innovation? Come on, you got to say it. Come on, Nav. What does that stand for, okay? Iced, okay? He is the Iceman, okay? So now that is really badass, okay? No, it's an honor to be able to work in this, but we all know, and everybody in this room knows, that the success, the fun, the glory doesn't come easy. Every single one of you have felt that. As you heard, whether you came 100 years ago or 10 years ago, everybody had to start somewhere. And those struggles weren't easy. But look in this country, how quickly, from those struggles, we can achieve things. And that we were remiss to not talk about the Komagata-Maru. And I share with you a personal perspective of what the Komagata-Maru means to me. Not from a historical sense, like I think most of you know the story behind that. But some of you may not know, I actually commanded the regiment, one of the regiments that pushed away the Komagata-Maru over 100 years ago. Think about the irony of that. Sikhs who traveled, and 100 years later, you have the commanding officer who's wearing a turban, one of the most multicultural regiments in Canada, 100 years later. The irony in that. But I'm going to explain to you some of that, what that irony means, and some additional irony around that. On the Komagata-Maru, I don't know if you know, there were veterans on that ship. And there's one gentleman there, he's wearing a sash. It's a cavalry sash. we couldn't figure out exactly which regiment that might have been. But he's a combat veteran. And the reason I say the combat veteran now, because you know what that means. So he's fought for the crown. And he's on a ship to come to another part of the British Empire with fellow Sikhs, Hindus, and Muslims also there. Then he comes to the shores at Cold Harbor, and they're not allowed to disembark. And fast forward a bit, with all the turmoil that happens, and trying to convince people that they too belong here, they're pushed away. And that ship was boarded by the soldiers of my former regiment. Did they know at that time that there were veterans there on that ship? They probably didn't, because we don't have the global connection as we do today. Would they have made a different decision? Probably not, because it's the government that makes the decision. The government at that time made those decisions. Our soldiers follow and execute the policies. But here's the irony. Now imagine what that combat veteran felt when they're being told to leave by fellow soldiers. And they left. You know what happens when they returned. But you also know, in that same month, a month later, World War I breaks out. And those soldiers, and many more that were recruited from the very regiment, goes off to fight in World War I in Europe, only to find that the Indian troops of the British military are already there. And one of the most biggest battles, and my regiment had many battles, from Vimy and the earlier battles of Battle of St. Julian, when the first time gas was used. And we know the history where the Sikh regiments also fought. My regiment was there. Now think about it. The regiment and the soldiers that pushed the Komagata-Maru away now are relying on each other. The same people that they pushed away with turbans, they're relying on each other to stay alive. Because at that battle, the Germans used gas for the first time. So, did my soldiers at that time make that connection? That we pushed away the Komagata-Maru with those soldiers, and now we have to rely on each other to stay alive. And the reason I mention this, I don't know when in our history of the regiment that our regiment just became very multicultural and accepting, but it was way before I joined in 1989. So I'd like to think, as a former commanding officer of that regiment, that might have been that pivotal moment in history that our soldiers realized that we cannot change the rest of government, but we can change what we can do within our regiment. And our regiment, from what I had learned, went all the way back to, I don't know how many years, being very accepting of other soldiers. Now, we got pictures to prove this afterwards of Sikhs, actually in pictures. People from different Chinese soldiers as well, First Nations. And the reason I mention this is because even though there was an absolute tragedy, over 100 years later, because of the challenge that they faced, the courage that they had to take that risk, all of this becomes possible. That's the true legacy of this. Even though it's a black mark in our history, we have to be able to learn from that. And that kind of reminds me of to my next topic, of what are we now doing with that history, that legacy? What are we going to do with that? And I think I don't have to talk too much about this in this room, because everybody here has shown success in their own ways. And you, in the Sikh Centennial Foundation, this gala is creating an inspiration for the next generation. And I just want to share with you what I got out of this in 1999 when you honored me with the award. I firmly believe that every human being has a gift. But unfortunately, not every human being is able to realize that gift that they have inside them. And that gift is what lets them make an impact on this world and make change and make that difference. So we have to find mentors to do this. But it's up to us to be able to pull that gift out of people. Because if we do that, and just like in the video it said, it was a social studies teacher that did it for me. And then I went and seeked out other mentors. And this is what this dinner represents. Because if we now look at every opportunity to look at the next generation, we're going to be able to help them realize that their gift and make the change the world. Because I firmly believe when you answer the question why it's important to succeed, your how will almost become automatic and your success will be guaranteed. Because if you want to make a difference, you become you can change the world. And if you find a group of people around you, like in this room, when you come together collectively of people who want to make a difference, you become an unstoppable force. And the reason I say this, now that I'm had the opportunity to be in government, and my colleagues with me, we need to work together and continue all the efforts that you're doing here and inspire the next generation, because they're far smarter than us. And I don't say this in a joking way, I really mean this. Because they're able to connect globally, realize what's happening, and make far different interpretations than what we had. So it's up to all of us now to set the conditions for them to change the world. Because if we don't, I deal with conflicts all over the world, and that's what I've done. And I can assure you, what you have here, the results of the Kumaga Tamaru, the positive side of it, the apology that's going to be coming from the House of Commons, all of this is an example for the rest of the world. And ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe the rest of the world needs a little bit of Canada. It's not Canadian values. These values are universal values. So I just want to again thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And everything that I've just said, every single one of you have in some way accomplishing that, pulling that gift out. And when I was honored in 1999, I saw those videos and got to see some great mentors and see many of you here in this room. So thank you very much for keep pushing me to do more. And I can assure you, none of us, myself, Nav, Raj, Bardish, none of us have stopped. We're going to keep pushing harder. But at the same time, we're going to be looking for the younger generation as well and keep pushing them as well, because I know the rest of the world needs more of Canada, and you know what, we really can change the rest of the world, and we need to start bringing the conflict down. And please make my life a little bit easier that way, okay? Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. It was a privilege and an honor to give the keynote address. As being an honoree from 1999, and now to be able to keynote address and be around such accomplished people where we can actually make a difference, it's a true privilege. Are you feeling a little bit of pressure in having to represent now that you're in this new role? It's the same pressure that I've always felt, whether I was in policing or the military. Is regardless of what you do, especially from an international perspective, you're representing more than your community, you're representing Canada. But that pressure is good, because it keeps you humble, it keeps you focused, and it keeps you focused on the true mission, which is to make a difference. How did it feel watching your accomplishments in that video? It almost brought a tear to my eye. And it's not my accomplishments, it's just, you know, to be able to see, you know, I see those moments as a little different than most people. In what way? You know, you see your parents and the struggles that they had, berry picking early on. You know, the pictures from being in India, where you didn't even have any running water, to all of a sudden you're in this, you know, just beautiful setting. It's inspiring, and we always appreciate what our parents have done for us. You must feel that even more now. Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah. Okay, last thing is, how are you hoping that this night impacts the guests that are in this room? You know, it's to always, every single year, to assess, you know, what have we done for humanity, and what can we do to, you know, next year, and setting new goals. And that's what it's about. Is is reassessing and learning constantly and having an impact on the world.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.